Hey, hello, let's get started. Whoa, I'm super bright. Oh my god, let me tune down a little bit. Hey, hello. Yeah, so sorry about that. I'm a little bit late today because, oh, and my frame rate is dropping for some reason. I hope that's okay. Okay, screen again, so I hope that's fine. Yeah, so because I was making a coffee and then like my desktop is a big mess. Like not just my computer desktop is a big mess as always. Like also my desktop, like physically here, is like a big mess. So yeah, so today's a little bit rough for me, I think. But so what we gotta do today, right? What we gotta do today is actually we gotta yeah, I'm still like trying to make the perfect color. Okay, this is much better. Yeah, sometimes like so difficult to control the light here in this room. I don't know why. Maybe because like the window is so like I have a big window just like next to my desk, so it's sometimes a bit weird. Yeah. So what we're gonna do today is to go through some of the Python environment managers. Because I think I've touched it a little bit before, and also I'm going to give a talk next Thursday at PyData Edinburgh about this. So yeah, the frame rate is dropping again. Jesus. I may have to restart it if I have to, if the frame rate is really bad. I think it's also again my VPN thing that's causing some problem here. So okay, so hope that that's okay. Otherwise, I may have to restart. But like, it's a pain to edit if I have to restart it. Yeah, so I don't want to do that. Okay, so yeah, I hope that's okay. Can you see me okay? Like if it's really horrible, let me know. Type in the chat or something, and I could just quickly fix that. Okay. So I first of all I'm going to go through like what I'm using and what I like using, and I'll go through a little bit of other options for you. So I think first of all, why we need to use a Python, environment manager is that well, you could end up with something like the XKCD kind of Python thing, like whether I can find the picture. Let me see that. XKCD Python paths. Yeah. So I think that's quite a Python environment. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, this one, this picture I really like. I don't know whether I can zoom in. Maybe I could. Yeah, so this is so this is very typical. This is a bit old because like obviously like Python 2.7 is still a thing. But but yeah, like if you don't use a environment manager, this could give you a trouble. Like I mean, if you have multiple version of Python in your computer, like when you run a script, do you know which one are you using? And then because to come with usually if you have multiple version of Python, what happen is that you have multiple version of pip. So I have came across a case that a few years ago when I was like teaching a workshop and someone asking me like, hey, I have pip installed the library then, but why? Yeah, why it's like not really working? Why it still complain that I don't have that library? I do some investigation and then I check that what happened is that um, the pip and the Python that we are supposed to be using are actually two different things. So basically, she installed something um, on another version of Python, so the path doesn't match. So when you use Python, it doesn't recognize that library because it's installed somewhere else. So yeah, we want to avoid that. So that's something that I always tell beginners to start using is to use a Python environment manager. That's actually much better. You will have first of all you'll be more aware of what you're doing with Python, like which version you're using, what you have install, pip install in your Python, and all those things. So I think it's a good practice to do that. So that's why it's so important. And again, like this is something very debatable because everybody have their own choices, and my choice may not be the best for you because I know that there are other people they will be like debating which one are the best. But I think it really is something very personal. It's kind of like I don't know. I don't know how to find an analogy, but for girls, maybe the makeup that you use or the skincare that you use, what do you think best suit for you? So everybody is different. So yeah, I'm just telling you what I'm using right now, first of all, and then I will go through the other options. And this one will be more detailed than my talk because I have more time, and then we could, go through like deeper. I am not going to do any coding demonstration today because I don't want to mess up with my environment that I've set up. Last time, I think I tried to contribute to a project and they recommend people to use Condor. So, okay, I'll just follow the party line and use Condor, but it messed up with my Pyenv, so I have to uninstall that. But it kind of caused me some trouble before I figure it out. So I don't want to mess up my environment by having multiple managers. So you only need one, to be honest. You only need one. So yeah. So my pick is Pyenv Virtual Env. This is kind of like, I would say, a little bit old school. There are other tools that I think is more popular nowadays, but this one just worked for me. It's fine. I'm sticking with it. So first of all, I think the first thing is there's Pyenv first. So let's look at Pyenv. So Pyenv is actually a tool that lets you switch between different versions of Python. Okay, so it's kind of like if you use Ruby, there's RBenv kind of thing. So I think it started that way. That some Pythonistas take inspiration from that, and they created a Python version of it. So you can see here that you could actually use different versions of Python. So you can actually have, because like the thing about Python, you can get all the official versions, download from the official Python or .org website. But there are also other interpreters in Python. So all this Python that I'm talking about, different version of Python, or this actually is a little interpreter. So it's kind of like a little program that kind of live in your computer. That when you give a Python script to it, or if you open its console, that when you type something, so it interprets your code as a Python code, and it would, because all your computer, your CPU, and all this stuff, it do the calculation in kind of like a binary state, so that's machine code. So, but we don't write machine code. That's so difficult to write. It's all a bunch of zeros and ones. Nobody understand what it is. So what we does is that we write in Python, and then this little Python interpreter, it will interpret Python not in machine code but in C, and then but most computer can run C code, automatically. Like there's something built in that could run it as a machine code. So that's why you have to install Python to run Python code, because you need this interpreter to do things. So all these like official versions that is on the python.org website is the standard one. So it kind of, okay, interpret your Python into C, and then your computer can run it. So there are different versions of it that actually provide different functionalities. So you can use different, because that's why there are different types of Python codes. There's Python 2 code, Python 3 code, because the interpreter interprets the code differently. That's why you have to write your code in a different style to match with the version. Okay, so this is actually how we use Python. We rarely think about them in when we're using Python, but like something for beginners to know. So other than that, there are also different publishing interpreter of Python. So they are not official, but it doesn't mean that they're bad. It's just because Python is a open source project, so there are people who in can write a different Python interpreter. Some of them are popular, like PyPy. PyPy is similar to the well, not similar, but in a way that it also interprets Python into C code, so it could execute. But the way they construct this interpreter, they use more Python in it, so they claim that is because of that it's much better because it's used less C, so it's faster. As in some cases, yes, it is faster. So that's why some people, they will use PyPy instead. There are also mini Condor. So this is like the other Condor distribution of Python. They have their own version of Python in that way. Um, so I will touch a little bit about Condor in a bit. And also there are other things like Iron Python, but that was kind of something in the past. um, and also there are maybe a Python that's basically compile Python into JavaScript. sorry, Java, not JavaScript. There's Sculpt, which compile Python into JavaScript, so you can run that on your browser. A lot of those like kind of things that you teach, or people can try out Python on the browser or these things. Actually, they are actually Sculpt, which is yeah. Did I say Sculpt or did I say something wrong? Like it's Sculpt. Is yeah. I don't know. So yeah, it's Sculpt. So it's kind of like interpreting Python into JavaScript, so you can run it on your browser. There are so there are different things, but the most common one, of course, is the official Python, CPython. We call that CPython that we're using, and also PyPy is also another popular choice. There are also others, but I'm not going to cover them. So yeah, these are the most popular ones. So you can install multiple interpreters in your computer, and um, and you can see that like with Pyenv, you can switch between them. So you can say like, okay, now when I type Python in my environment, I'm actually referring to this 3.5. Okay, so this is what this is doing. But in this computer, this user also install PyPy, also have 2.7. This may be an old picture, so someone may need to still use 2.7 to maintain some old code. Also mini Condor, maybe for some of the data science projects that everybody's using mini Condor, so just to be consistent. So yeah, then you can actually switch between them. So it's good because, like I said, different projects may use different version of Python. Uh, so if this person is maintaining some old code, everything is in 2.7, you can easily switch to 2.7. There was an old kind of solution to that is that when 3 just started, people are still using 2. There is okay, Python means Python 2 and Python 3 means Python 3. But that's something in the past. When I started Python, is already I mainly use Python 3. I rarely use 2. So so yeah, Python I would just install in my computer. Python is just Python 3, and because I use Python, so I could switch between different versions easily. Okay. Um, so I can actually switch 3.6, 3.7, 3.5. You can still switch between those if you need to, because sometimes you need to check compatibility and other stuff. Yeah. So you can have a global version, and then you can per project you can set up different Python versions. So that's the good thing. Um, this is Pyenv. So okay, you can see that like well then what is that thing that you showed me before, the virtual env? What does that do? So virtual env is another thing. So there are actually two projects, but the Python hyphen virtual env is actually combining those. So I'm going to talk about that actually. Um, so yeah, this is combining both. Virtual env means that it kind of for the same version of Python, let's say 3.6, you can have a different environment, different 3.6 environment. Why do we do that? Because 3.6 is 3.6. Well, the thing being, we have pip, right? We can pip install different things. So for different projects, you may want to have a different. For different projects, you may want to have a different, package setup. So for example, data science project will have pandas, Jupyter Notebook, NumPy, scikit-learn, all this stuff. But it's not necessary for your Django project because you would use Django and some other Django things. Um, so you don't want to have one environment that have all of these installed because, well, first of all, if you try to use requirements.txt to manage your environment, you include everything in it, and if you like put it on GitHub and your colleague get it, and then your colleague try to reproduce the same environment and then do like the pip install -r requirements.txt, it will be like, well, wait a second, we are building a website here, right? Why do we have pandas, matplotlib, and scipy here? Well, because you're mixing the environment of your data science project, and we don't want that because sometimes even different, for example, the data science project, there may be an old project that uses Panda 0.23 and there's a new project that uses Panda 1 point something, then the two may crash because some old code may not run on Pandas 1 point something, above. So you want to keep a separate environment for a different project a lot of the times. The way to do it is to create different virtual environment, and then you will have a different set of package that is installed. that you could fully control which version you're using as well for those package, not just the Python version, but the package version. So so that's why this like virtual env wrapper come in, and this is very handy. So I won't go through too much detail. Like I said, I'm not going to do demonstration today. Sorry, I'm just like, yeah, something on my feet. So yeah, I'm not going to do like a demonstration today. I'm just going to go through this. You can go through the setup yourself because this is kind of a bit OS dependent. So again, it's impossible for me to cover everything for everybody. And also you may not choose virtual env anyway, so I won't go too much into detail. But well, this is kind of advanced. But what you can do is that if you are like me using macOS, you can do it with Homebrew. You can install that. Well, it's kind of like a little bit more difficult than just download Python and pip install things, because you have to. So this one also I need to talk to your terminal and your OS. So yeah, sometimes the installation requires something outside of the Python environment. So for Mac, it's easy because you have Homebrew. If you don't have Homebrew, you can easily install it with Ruby. I think Ruby come with the Mac OS. So yeah, so just follow like step by step install. Like you should install Homebrew anyway if you are a kind of a tech user of Mac. It's kind of give you a lot of shortcut to do some tech install thing. Because like publishing on Homebrew is much easier than publishing an image on Mac. We are trying to publish something right now, so we know that okay, Mac is a little bit difficult. Yeah. So so for other users, I didn't see any thing here. Maybe you have to compile from source, or maybe you have to follow this instruction here. So Linux user, I think you can definitely do this. Just follow these steps, and so you just download it and compile from source. And then one thing to note that you have to modify your environment file. So for me, I'm using so if you're using Bash, then you do this. I'm using ZSH, so I have to change this ZSH and so you have to add this script in there. So when you type Python, actually your computer knows that you're referring to the Python that uh, your current global Python setting is using. Okay, so yeah, you have to set that up. Trust me, it's just like one time, and then you don't have to go through it again. It's a little bit difficult to start, but uh, when you have done it once, then you think that, oh my god, I'm going to stick with it every time because it is so useful. Okay, so you can also create a virtual env from the current version. So all these stuff, I won't go through them in detail. I rarely do that. I usually just like I would set up an environment first, and then I would install my thing there. I would like to start from scratch. This is what I like doing. So it's like kind of like my practice. So I rarely do this, but you could do this as well if you like. Activate. So once you have set up your environment, you can just do pyenv activate. So this is, I think, if you have seen my other tutorial, you have seen me do it a few times already. So pyenv activate something, and then you deactivate it. Okay. And you can also delete it if you have things that is old and you don't need it anymore. You can delete it to get rid of it from your site. So yeah, so this okay. This is what I'm going to talk about next. The venv module. So venv module actually come with. So this is so good. This we also tell you other stuff that you could try. Venv is something that I want to talk about next. Venv, you don't have to install it. It comes with Python if you're using CPython 3.3 or newer. So it also lets you do like virtual env kind of thing. Um, so let's go to here maybe so we can have more details about it. Yeah, so you can see this is our beloved python.org documentation, and you can see that. I'm just trying to zoom in because I'm worried that it's too small. Yeah, so this like venv is come with Python, like I said, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, I have to homebrew install all this craziness. You don't have to. So but this is something that I don't like, right? So it's like Python 3, and then you have to dash vm dash mvenv thing. So it's not as clean as using pyenv in my opinion, but the like the advantage is that you don't have to install it. there are other, like, this is showing you how Windows work. You have to, first go to find your Python. So this is Python 3.5 and it's installed on the C drive. And you find that Python and then you dash vn and then you give a path to your environment. And then all your stuff will be installed in that environment because now you're in that environment. But if you have already set up your Python path correctly, then you could just use Python and then -m. So Python -m means that run the following as a module. So actually, you can run a pip as a module as well. So that's why sometimes people suggest type Python -m pip install instead of just pip install. The reason being that could avoid the case that I told you earlier, that having the Python version and the pip version pointing to different places. If you use Python -m, it's definitely using the Python version that you're using with your Python command. Then if you call pip that way, so that would definitely be installing for this Python that you're currently using. Um, so that's another way of avoiding all this craziness of Python path. And um, yeah. So yeah, so like Pyenv is old, so it's like deprecated in Python 3.6 and other stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, it's working fine for me. I would introduce you to some other tools that you may use as well. So yeah, I may have to switch to other ones in the future, because yeah, I also feel that it's getting a little bit old and we may have something. So this is again, like, how to set up your Activate script. So because, like, you don't want to type this Python -vn every time, so you may want to set up a activation script here. So this is all telling you how to do it. So yeah, it also depends on what you're using. So PowerShell is very popular for Windows users. And also, like, Windows 10 users, especially, they're using PowerShell. And ZSH and Bash is like mainly Linux user or a Unix user using. So there are others as well. Um, yeah. So these, like, so all these, like, you don't have to worry about API and this stuff, because if you're not building something with VN, I mean, you're just a user, then you could just go through all this stuff till that point. Okay, so you can go through all this, like, installation, like, well, you don't have to install it, but like you should go through all this setup and stuff like that. Okay. So this is like, I like using VM when I'm using, for example, I use it quite a lot when I was working in a bank, because you can't install anything that you want. You have to go through the IT department and the stuff. I don't like that. So what they give me is just a Python, and then I'll be like, okay, like, I don't want to get myself in the big mess of installing Pyenv and other stuff. So I'll just use VM because they give me Python 3.6, which have VM. Okay, so yeah, right. And okay, next one is Condor. So Condor and Mini Condor. So uh, they are kind of like a they're also Python, but they're kind of like a separate set of Python, I would say, because it's by a company that basically help companies, the other businesses, to have a safer version of Python. So what I mean is that if I go to their website, Conda, so yeah, okay. Sorry, I talk a lot, so I need to drink some coffee. I love my coffee. Okay. So yeah, Condor is it's published by the Condor, the company Condor. So they have this enterprise edition. So basically, what they're doing is that they get they kind of publish a safe environment in Python for companies, because they have this, like, kind of governance things that they could have more control of, because Python is an open source project. So there are some security concerns by companies, of course. So Conda provides kind of solution for companies that have that concern. Okay, not all companies love using open source as is. Okay, because they have security concern. Like, if you work in a bank, of course there are a lot of major concern in security. So Anaconda kind of this is their business model. But the good thing about Anaconda is that they also provide a free package for people to use. So that's why people love it. So they also I don't know whether like they've changed their website. I haven't I haven't checked out their website a bit. Is it individual edition or something like that? They have a free edition. Yeah, I think this may be it. Yeah. So individual edition, so their business model targeted on businesses. So if you're just an individual that want to do data science stuff or this cool stuff that I've talked about in my other stream before, I may go back to talk a little bit about them in the future, but not now. I'm trying to recover myself. I still have fatigue a lot due to my condition, but yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. But this is kind of like individual version. So yeah, so this is free to get because like they're not aiming to get money from you, they're getting money from businesses. So yeah, you're free to do them to get it, and it will come. So if you download Anaconda, it will come with all these data science stuff. That's why it's loved by data science project. And also I have so the story of me contributing and I have to use Condor is that I contribute to Bouquet, which is well, it's included in this. So a lot of these projects. So if you're into open source and you love to contribute to these projects, the chances are they would love you to use Conda because they are kind of these data science suits that like work very well with Condor, and because a lot of data scientists love Condor and love Alaconda, so they would want to use something that their users love. I think I really get it, and I think it's a good strategy. But for me, who is like kind of also do other stuff in Python, that I feel that well, Conda may not be my first choice of management tool, but if you are doing data science project, you mainly use Python for data science. I would recommend you to use Conda because it matches with all this stuff very well. Um, so yeah, so Conda is something you can see is come with a la Condor. If you download mini Condor, it's just the mini Condor version of Python and also Condor. So it doesn't come with all these Jupyter notebooks, SciPy, pandas, all this amazing stuff because Anaconda is like the name is a big snake, is a lot of stuff in it. So you may not want to have all of them. If you are just like if you have more advanced users, this is more like for data science people who kind of I will more or less use everything, so they don't mind downloading Anaconda just one and for all. I don't have to pip install everything. But if you are someone who more advanced, you want to have full control of what you install or not in your environment, then you may download mini Conda and then install whatever you need. Um, so yeah, this is a kind of introduction to what is Condor. I have talked a lot, so let's go back to the documentation. So yeah, so Condor is this like tool that is basically like a pip, but so yeah, so it's kind of like a separate thing. So when you pip install something, okay, it's so that's the open source version. It goes to the sorry, my frame rate is dropping. I got frozen from time to time. I need to switch off the VPN next time if I remember. Sorry about that. So yeah, so if you use you pip install, it goes to PyPI, and then it will just look through PyPI and then find the package that you need and then download and install it for you. But PyPI, everybody can upload something as long as they know how to, build a wheel, publish the wheel. Everybody can do it. You just need to, register for an account, and everybody can do that. So yeah, as the security wise is not the best. Um, so they have these Anaconda Anaconda kind of thing. They have a repo in anaconda.com. So if you Conda install something. So instead of going to PyPI, it will go to their registry and download things. So if you want to publish something, you have to go through their kind of. I think I've done it once. You have to uh, not fill in a form, but send like a pull request or something, so someone will check it before you can be on Anaconda. So they have a team of people doing some check on this project that want to publish on their website or their registry. So not all Python project you can conda install. But those things that I showed you before in the picture, most data science libraries that you could Condor install, because they're the popular ones, they have already published on with a la Condor environment. So uh, so you can also get your library to be in there in this like Anaconda registry. Uh, so people can Conda install your library, but like I said, it goes through a little bit more things. So because there'll be someone who maintain this registry to check it. Um, so yeah, so that's why there. Well, you can still pip install stuff if you're using Conda, but of course they recommend you to Conda install all the time. Right. So to have Conda, you just need to download Mini Conda. So you would automatically have a version of Python, and you would have the Conda environment manager. So you can have Conda install command. It's a bit small. Sorry about that. Let me zoom in a little bit. So yeah, you have the Conda install command that is installed. So you will have a lot of Conda packages from the Anaconda repository. So yeah, so like I said, most popular, especially data science library, is on their Anaconda repository. So yeah, again, this is highly recommended for people who are doing data sciencey stuff. Okay, so so now the Python versions that they have is 3.8, so you can have like Miniconda, so you can download it here. For Linux and Mac as well, you can have it. And also for Windows user, it's kind of like almost like a no-brainer to download it. It's so easy to download this. Compared to, remember the Python, you have to go through all these setup steps to set up your Python pubs and all this stuff. But Anaconda get it done for you for everything. But for someone who won't fully control, then it's a bit of a nightmare. um, Okay, so how you use that is just like conda install numpy. So you can have conda install. You can create an environment by conda create, um, and then you could, you know, so syntax is a little bit different from the Pyenv, but it's more or less the same. So you create, and then dash n I guess is new, and then Python you can say is 2 or 3 here, by something like that, and then I think you just need to put a name there. Yeah. So it would create a new environment for you, and also you can update it from time to time, like pip as well. You should always keep it updated. I am the person who is like, doesn't do what I tell people to do. I I rarely update my pip, which is bad. So okay, so that's Conda. So let me quickly go through the other two. So the other two that I want to talk about is pipenv. So Pyenv is also popular, now getting more and more popular. Um, yeah, so let me click on it and talk about it. So, pipenv, so what is 2020 here is funny. Can I go to their project description, or like their GitHub thing? So, right, okay, so we are in here. And I like seeing things from GitHub. I don't know why. I think maybe because, yeah, I think it's more clear here. Okay, so they have an introduction. So Pyenv is kind of very similar to Pyenv, but the thing that they do differently is that instead of requirements dot text, that you kind of store all your package that you install in a text file. It also stores things in a text file, but it's called a pip file. And so you also have a pip file log. So what happened is that in pip files, basically you put in, oh, I want to use this and that. Some of them you just like, oh, I know that I need to use version, let's say pandas 1 or above. I don't care which version, but as long as it's pandas 1, I'm happy. So you can put all of that requirement in there. So what pip-file log will do is will find the best version that is suitable for all the requirements that you set up in pip-file. Because sometimes there are crashes that, like, for example, you have another thing, I don't know, some pandas plugin that is not too updated, that they only work for pandas 1.0.3 or below. then pip file would .log would be log like 1.0.3 or something like that. It won't go too like beyond that because otherwise your other plugin won't work. So yeah, so this is how it works. There's a little GIF there. You can see how it works in your terminal, but yeah, it's kind of like for advanced usage here that you logged it, and then yeah, so this is how it works. And so the main kind of feature highlight here is basically, yeah, it instead of requirements.txt, it used the pip file and pip file log. So that's kind of try to avoid those versions clashing that I've talked about. And yeah, so it's kind of a little bit more secure as well. So there are like hashes that's used. Um, yeah, and also you can use .env. So if you have other environment variables that you set up, you can also work by using .env in there. So it's kind of like a more advanced than Pyenv, I would say. So installation, again, you have to use other things to install other than like Python, because again, it's kind of like a more low level thing. You need to talk with your oh my god, my frame rate is horrible. So yeah, it need to talk to um, your terminal. So well, apt-get if you're using Linux, and I think you can also homebrew if you're using Mac as well. Yeah, I think they didn't put it here, but yeah, I'm sure that you can install it with Unix system. Windows, I'm not so sure, but yeah, you may need to do a little bit more digging if you're using yeah, so these are all Linux. So yeah, if you're using something else, yeah, refer to documentation. So I think they have listed it in documentation. So maybe we'll just go through that if my internet allows. Yeah, I don't want to start over again now because we are kind of like 40 minutes in. I just kind of like kind of tank through this frame rate madness. Um, yeah. So what? Yeah, so you can brew install if you're using Mac. And yeah, other things that you just like depends on your OS, you can install it one way or another. There are also other ways to install. I think it may be a little bit challenging for Windows user, to be honest, from what I'm seeing. So yeah, I know. That's why Windows users like I'm so sorry about them, and also I don't like using Windows because of that. Okay, so let's go back to usage. This is too much detail in here. I think I may go back, or maybe I just like, do they have a quick start page? I could quickly just go through some of the basics. Yeah, the documentation is a little bit too detailed, but they have other languages, which is great. They have Japanese and Spanish. So, right. Okay, so let's go back to the GitHub. So there's a shorter version of things. Um, yeah, so you could also like install, uninstall different environments and log when you have different. Oh, another thing about it, I think when you switch to another folder, it will just automatically switch your environment. So instead of, so correct me if I'm wrong. So for a Pyenv, it you would manually switch between different environments. But for Pyenv, I think for each repository, so if you put your log file and like yeah, put those stuff in a folder, it in your basically the root of your repository, then like the whole repository will be using this environment. Um, and so that's different from Pyenv. So that's why I use Pyenv, because I have full control of like, oh, what environment I want to use in this folder. Sometimes I want to switch, but in pipenv, you can only have one environment in one repository because you have one log file there. Okay. Yeah, so you don't have to. So the advantage is that you don't have to switch between different environment, uh, but yeah, so you pipenv install. So instead of pip install, you pipenv install. So it would also update your pip file and other stuff. Yeah, but the thing is that I think it depends on your use case. If you're like, okay, I rarely use different environment on the same repository, I would have like repository unique environment for each, I would prefer it that way. Pipenv is a good choice. Otherwise, I still prefer Pyenv because I have full control. Yeah, so this is another difference of pipenv versus Pyenv. So, okay, let me quickly, I'm really annoyed by this frame rate drop. Let me quickly go through the last one and we'll call it a day. So, poetry, I think, Python. So that's the last one. So this one is, again, like more new, but it's getting more and more popular. And they're super fancy. Their website's super fancy. Okay, so let's have a look what they offer. Uh, one of the one of the C Python code developer that I know who is using Poetry is Stefan, a good friend of mine, and he is using Poetry in his live demo, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. So yeah, so you may consider using it as well. Looks like a good tool. So it's similar to pipenv. So if you pipenv user, you may also want to have a look at Poetry. It's very similar. You lock your environment so there's no clashing. So yeah, so you Poetry add a a library, and then it would just like update the dependency, and then it would just lock it for you. You can also build, and oh yeah, so you can actually like build and package your project as well. So I think that's why it's getting more popular. So instead of just managing your environment, you can also build your own a package. Okay, so you can publish it. So yeah, so like it also work as a setup tool that lets you. So if you are doing some uh, you know uh, so if you're doing some like project that you making a Python package that you would upload to PyPI, so maybe Poetry is convenient because it lets you build and publish very easily instead of like if you have done it with just pip, then you know that or those like you have set up two suites that you have to build a wheel and then you now use Twine to upload it and all this stuff. So yeah, it's kind of quite convenient. So I think that's why my friend loves it. They can also track the dependency, so it will also print out very nice, show the tree, which depends on what. So this is also something that the others doesn't have. Yeah, we also struggle with so which one? So because like when you type pip list, it just show a list of things that you have installed in your environment. So now it's getting dark now. But yeah, like I said, the outdoor lighting affects my room quite a lot. But I don't want to like black out my room and just use the light. It's so weird. So I don't know. Maybe I have to have, like I said, I have to have maybe another light for the background. Um, yeah. So yeah, we always think about like pip list is only list out everything that I've installed. You don't know whether it's something that you manually install like pandas because I need to use pandas, or it's something like uh let's say NumPy because panda use NumPy. I let's say I never use NumPy. I never think that I need NumPy until I kind of install pandas, but pandas using NumPy, so it install NumPy for me, and then I'll be like, oh, why do I have NumPy in my pip list? Well, because pandas install it for you. So yeah, so having Poetry that can show the tree is another advantage that people may want. Uh, and the latest, so it's also show your install history as well. So like it yeah when do I install it? I can't remember. I've installed Django, so you look at it as oh yeah, maybe I've installed it quite a while ago, so you have like something sitting very bottom of your list. Yeah, so it's quite a powerful tool. I can see why people love it. I may actually try using it. So this is something that if I migrate from my Pyenv, I think this would be the candidate that I kind of like. So I'm trying to go to the GitHub and my internet is freaking out. Yeah, sorry, I paused a little bit there because yeah, the frame rate is dropping very badly. Okay, please let me get through this and then we are done. Please, please. Uh, okay. Yeah, I think I'll just wait here for a minute or two to see if it's better. And because you're not seeing my screen very well, I can see that I'm kind of frozen still in the previous screen. Yeah. Come on, please. Let me go through this. Okay. Right. So Yeah, okay, I'll just quickly talk through it. If you can't see the screen well, I'm so sorry about that. The frame rate is really dropping crazily right now. Um, so yeah, Poetry is very nice in that way. So to install it, you just have to make a curl. So download it. Well, curl SSL. So yeah, download it, and then you can download the get poetry.py. So they have a Python script that lets you do all this stuff automatically. So you can just run it with your Python version, and then so you just grab their get poetry.py script, and then you just run it with your Python, and then it will install it. Install user, um, pip install user poetry. You can also pip install it, so that's nice because I love to pip install, not like you don't have to do all this craziness of like, oh, so you have to use homebrew if you're like Mac, if you're using Linux, apt-get, all this stuff. So yeah, you can just pip install it. So that's great. But yeah, but it may have conflict, so it's kind of like a warning. So yeah, choose your own weapon, I would say. So yeah, so updating poetry, you can just use poetry to update itself, and then um, you can also set up tab completion by putting all this script in your whatever you know environment file for your bash. So yeah, just follow this. Sorry, I have to skip through this because the frame rate is really killing me. I'm just like quickly get this done. Um, and they also have this Pi project toml that you could use to kind of set up your project. Yeah, all this stuff. What about pipenv? Uh, yeah, so it's kind of like comparing itself with pipenv. So yeah, like I said, it's similar to pipenv, but it's kind of like pipenv with, on steroids. So it got like more things than pipenv. But I think management-wise, like usage-wise, it's very similar to pipenv, but it got a little bit more functionality that's like pipenv doesn't provide. So yeah, I think that's quite good. But again, like I think you will also only have one like kind of pyproject.toml file in your project, and you are sticking with it. And also, this one mainly is used for people who are trying to publish a package, which I think is most of the case, unless you're doing data science stuff, which I recommend Condor already. So yeah, I think for people like me who develop tools in Python, and and no, not P, I'm sorry, poetry seems like a good choice. Um, yeah, so I think that's it. I am dropping frame rate like raining, so I have to stop now. So sorry about that. I will remember to switch off my VPN next time. Yeah. So thank you for sticking with me if you are listening to here, and sorry if you are watching the video and the quality is super bad because of my streaming issues. I would learn from my mistake next time, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye.